Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Langer at the Mic, another Habs postgame show here on Langer at the Mic. And the Montreal Canadiens, once again, they lose 3-1 to the Calgary Flames. They had all the excuses in the world on Thursday after playing their second game in less than 24 hours in a different time zone with travel, but there were no excuses to the Montreal Canadiens tonight against the Calgary Flames, and they just came out with another completely flat performance. And quite honestly, you know what? They put themselves behind the eight ball before they even dropped the puck because head coach Dominic Ducharme took out Jake Evans and put in Paul Byron to be the fourth line center, which is okay if you're going to commit to Paul Byron playing center on the fourth line for the entire game. But they didn't, and to make matters worse, Philip Deneau got hurt in the first period, and he wasn't the same for the rest of the game. And then that meant that Suzuki and Jesperi Kotkaniemi, obviously, look, they got their increased ice time that everyone wanted, but they were essentially the only two centers that the Canadiens had for most of the hockey game. And then to make matters even worse, Nick Suzuki collided with Corey Perry on a bit of a miscommunication, broken play behind the net in the third period. So, but again, you know what? Even with that, that's still no excuse for Yoel Armia to have literally to be in his own corner, his own left corner as a right winger, and to have four passing options, four guys to pass to below the goal line in his own corner. But then instead, he decided to skate behind the net and try to evade not one forechecker, but two forecheckers on the Calgary Flames, lose the puck to Brett Ritchie, and obviously Sean Monahan came and took it. And because everyone thought that they were playing, that they were going to easily break out of their zone, because again, Yoel Armia had four options to pass the puck to close to him, so everyone was pretty much ready to break out, but they obviously couldn't get back to recover in time. So Sean Monahan had all the time in the world to do whatever he wanted in front of the net. He had the time to get the puck, turn around onto his forehand, and put it bar down on Carey Price high glove side. And then also being banged up at center has no excuse for your captain, Shea Weber, being more focused on cross-checking Matthew Tkachuk into Carey Price instead of actually trying to clear the puck out from in front of the net on the penalty kill, leading to the second Sean Monahan goal on the scramble in front. I mean, look, obviously it's a power play, and sure, Matthew Tkachuk doing his job in front of the net, and just Sean Monahan, credit to him for crashing the net and pouncing on the loose puck. And Joel Edmondson was kind of caught in no man's land on the play, and Arturi Lehkonen also was just kind of covering the point there. So it's not all on Shea Weber, but still, there could have been. I feel like he could have done a better job boxing, or maybe not boxing out Tkachuk, because he essentially boxed him out into Carey Price, but clearing the puck out of the net on the PK, or out of the crease on the PK. And then, so that's 2-0. But then being banged up at center also isn't an excuse for Jeff Petrie being really soft on his one-on-one on Andrew Mangiapane in the second period. Maybe it was at the end of the shift, I don't know. But even worse, so not so much on Petrie, because at least Petrie kept Mangiapane to the outside, but I feel like Petrie had a legit opportunity to take the puck away from him. But Joel Edmondson just completely left Michael Backlund wide open in front of the net. And by the way, Joel Edmondson, who's been playing really, really well of late, and he's been the Habs' second best defenseman of late, but for that 30 seconds, he forgot to cover Michael Backlund in front, and all of a sudden it's 3-0, and the Habs, who haven't been able to score except for the game against the Canucks and the game against the Jets, and especially on Markstrom, on Jacob Markstrom, they're all of a sudden down 3-0 halfway through the second period. So at least Jeff Petrie, he made up for it by taking an absolute beauty of a pass from Jonathan Drouin off the backhand and just, clapping it high short side on Jacob Markstrom in the third to make it 3-1. But still, being banged up at center like they were is not an excuse for any of those things, especially when it was self-imposed, when you took Jake Evans out of the lineup and thought you could roll with Paul Byron as the fourth line center, which is, again, is fine if you're going to keep Paul Byron as the fourth line center, but if you're not going to put him out there for faceoffs, or if you're just going to keep rotating him in and out of that fourth line center role, well, maybe you should put Jake Evans in there, or maybe not Laurent Dauphin, but maybe call up Ryan Poehling. I don't know. Do something. Just have four centers instead of 3.5 centers in the lineup. And then when that way, look, I mean, you can't expect an injury, but still when you get those injuries to Suzuki and Deneau, you're essentially screwed because you have two sort of centers to cover them. So anyway, the Habs either way had zero excuse to be as flat as they were in the first 40 minutes of this game and to leave Carey Price completely out to dry, who made 33 saves, by the way, and played pretty darn well in this game. He had to make several saves on several breakaways, one particular one on Johnny Gaudreau, I think it was in the first period. Just look, sure the Habs showed up in the third period and they played much faster. And the good news is that Jesperi Kotkaniemi was 10 out of 19 on faceoffs and Suzuki was 9 for 16. And like I said, Carey Price was really good in this game. You cannot blame Carey Price for this one. But to lose a second game in a row to a team that was 4 points behind you for the last playoff spot coming into this game and to play as bad as they did in the first 40 minutes is a huge red flag. There's still a lot of hockey left, and we'll be halfway through the season after Monday's game against the Winnipeg Jets. But honestly, look, you fired Claude Julien, you fired Kirk Muller, you fired Stéphane Waite. But like the results are in the grand scheme of things essentially the same. I mean, look, at least Carey Price is playing better. That's nice. At least the special teams are for the most part much better, especially the power play. But overall, the results just still aren't there. And they're just, I feel like the problem is just the fact that the best players on this team just simply aren't good enough. Because it's not an issue of depth. We've been saying all year, all off season, with all the moves that Marc Bergevin made, how the Habs, they're built on depth. But that so-called depth has been on a milk carton since January. Sure, Toffoli and Anderson, they've been lighting it up earlier in the season, but they aren't going to score every single game, especially when Josh Anderson has been banged up like he is between the slew foot and the fight and all that. Like, Josh Anderson, honestly, hasn't been the same as of late. He's been more, I feel like he's been more of, like, I'll be honest, I didn't watch him too much in Columbus with the 2-goal season he had last year, or 4 goals, whatever it was in his shortened season, 2019 and 2020. But I'm guessing he's playing more like that right now than he was at the beginning of the season, where he was scoring a goal every 2 games. But anyway, when Josh Anderson and Tyler Toffoli aren't going to score every game, and Jonathan Drouin and Jesperi Kotkaniemi, they can only make so many perfect passes, and Jeff Petrie, he's a defenseman, he's not a forward at the end of the day. So what about Thomas Tatar? What about Shea Weber? What about Paul Byron? What about Nick Suzuki? What about Yoel Armia? What about Arturi Lehkonen, Jake Evans? These so-called depth players who, okay, maybe they're playing well for the most part, except for, again, Yoel Armia with that boneheaded play in the first period that led to the first goal. But they're not scoring 5-on-5. They're just not getting the job done. And again, back to Nick Suzuki though. We've been saying this. We can say this for the last 20 games in a row. He just isn't the same as he was earlier in the season. And I feel like what's even more, like, he might not even be as good as he was last year in the regular season. He's definitely not even close to how he was in the bubble, and not even close to how he was in the first 10 games of the season. And like, I don't know, like, it almost seems to be like almost an effort thing. Like, he's a talented player, but I feel like for him to be really, really effective game in, game out, he has to play with that same level of effort as he was playing earlier in the season. So part of it maybe could be the fact that he's playing 18 to 19 minutes a game back a couple weeks ago before Kotkaniemi started picking it up. As a 21-year-old, Suzuki is playing 19 minutes a game as a number one center. Maybe he's not quite ready for that yet. Sure. Maybe that's wearing him down. But I also, look, I hate to say this, but I kind of also hope that he's hurt, not because I wish injury on anyone, but because at least that would explain as to why he hasn't been the same. And obviously he got kind of banged up when he ran into Corey Perry. It's late at night tonight, and there's going to be we're going to be springing forward on the clocks tonight, so forgive me. But anyway, at least if Suzuki was hurt, at least that would explain why he has not been the same. Oh, also, not to mention the fact that Ben Sherratt, who has been, so many people have criticized the Ben Sherratt and Shea Weber pairing, but now that Ben Sherratt is hurt, can't you see how important he is to this defense core? Because now that he's hurt, and supposedly Victor Mete, who is supposed to be a good depth option at defense, yet him and Brett Kulak are good for at least 3 shifts every second period, where they're going to get absolutely just pinned in their zone for 2.5 minutes straight. So look, you can't rely on that. Like you just like I said, the depth, the Canadians, their best players aren't good enough. Like Shea Weber, going back to Shea Weber, like he's just between the goal, the second goal and the PK there, like I described, and the boneheaded giveaway the other game, he's just not playing like he was in the bubble. He's just not, you know, finishing his hits. He's just not mauling people into the boards. He's not as good positionally. He's not as good with the in terms of break. Like he's just not the same as he was in the bubble. Plain and simple. And he's the captain and he's supposed to be the best defenseman on this team, but it's hard to argue for him being the third best defenseman on this team right now, Shea Weber. So look, realistically, you're not going to play at your absolute best for every second in every game of an 82 game season, or even a 56 game season, or even a 16 game NFL season, talking about football. But at the end of the day, the best teams, they like their highs, like they have high highs, right? And not very low lows, or their lows don't happen as often. So they'll be able to that's how they keep their level of play relatively more consistent over the course of the year than the bad teams, right? And the Habs lows right now, they're happening way too often and their highs aren't good enough. So if the Habs, they can't get away with falling behind 3-0 to the Flames, or even barely even 2-0. I mean, yeah, sure, they came back against the Jets last week, but when they could barely score on Jacob Markstrom, they can't afford to get behind 3-0 because they ain't going to score 3 goals on Jacob Markstrom right now. So, look, what you get with that, with a team that's just when they finally figure things out in the third period and they finally start playing well, you know, in the third period, and they get maybe a goal out of it, but that doesn't help you overcome the 3-0 deficit. Or even if you play really well for 59 minutes of a hockey game against the Vancouver Canucks earlier this week, well, that's not good enough because you don't score enough goals and then they come back to tie it and they win in overtime because you still haven't figured out how to play 3-on-3 overtime this year. But anyway, that's basically what the Habs are right now, is what you get is you find ways to lose games, unless everything goes their way, like against the Winnipeg Jets last Saturday and the Vancouver Canucks on Wednesday. But right now, if that's not going to be easy like that, struggling forwards or forward lines that are struggling, they're not getting picked up by other forward lines. Or if a defenseman gets hurt and his replacement's only NHL ability is to skate really fast through the neutral zone, the end result is that you'll lose more hockey games than you'll win. And the Habs have lost more hockey games than they've won in 2021, given the fact that they've lost, what's the record? 10, 7, and 7, I think, right now, or 10 or 12, 7, and 7. Yeah, 12, 7, and 7. Yeah, that's what it is. Again, pardon me, it's late, but yeah, at the end of the day, they've lost more games than they've won so far in 2021. But, and just again, there was the chart that illustrates scoring chances, like the visual chart that shows like the density of high danger scoring chances for each team. Once again, tells it all, because it shows how the Flames, all of their chances came from right in the middle of the slot, whereas the Habs' best chances were most of their chances were scattered to the outside. Even at 6-on-5, like it seemed that every shot that they attempted at 6-on-5 when they pulled Price to try to, you know, tie it up or make it 3-2 and eventually 3-3, they're just taking low percentage shots from the outside. They're allowing the Flames D-men and forwards to get into shooting lanes and take away their chances of getting pucks to the net, especially from far away to the outside. So look, there's still a lot of hockey to be left, and I know my optimism comes crashing down after games like this, but you know what? To me, again, what's the point of being a sports fan if you're not going to have any optimism? And I know a lot of fans are out there that don't have any optimism, but I personally couldn't do it. So anyway, on to the Winnipeg Jets this coming Monday. And look, maybe the Habs could they figured something out against the Jets last Saturday. Maybe they can keep it going. Who knows? But yeah, it's tough right now. Like the Habs were playing so well after the first really bad game under Dominique Ducharme, and while it resulted in win-loss with the overtime struggles, just seeing these two back-to-back losses, or at least, you know, the way the team responded tonight after how flat they were on Thursday because of the travel, it's discouraging. And we'll see. Just Marc Bergevin again. He's running out of options at this point. He fired the head coach, the assistant coach, the goalie coach. At least some of the guys, like I said, special teams are better, sort of. The power play is much better. Price is thankfully better, but just the defense, the overall consistency, the defense, like the breakouts of their out of their own zone, the fact that they're not always moving their feet, and the fact that they're just they're not consistently scoring enough goals is concerning. But anyway, that's all we have here on this Habs post-game show here on Langer at the mic for tonight against the Flames. As usual, if you enjoy my commentary, give me a big thumbs up on this video. Subscribe to my channel. Give me a follow on Twitter and Instagram at Mike Langer. I'll include that in the description below. And this has been a Habs post-game show here on Langer at the mic. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again next time.